We're back with Ricardo Gonzalez, and we're finding out everything there is to know about real estate in the Bronx, I think. And we just found out a little bit about property, buying a home in the Bronx. We want to find out about renting a place in the Bronx. You do that as well, right?
We do that as well, yes.
And how is that going nowadays, the rental market in the Bronx? Are people coming? I imagine because rents are so high in Manhattan, people are moving to the Bronx, right?
Yes, people are moving to the Bronx, people are moving from the Bronx. It is a constant movement. The economy in New York is people come from anywhere, live in New York, in the Bronx, in Queens, or Manhattan, and they go someplace else. So it's like people coming in and people going out. Mm. What's happening in the Bronx is that it's so close to the city, you know, just across the river. You know, you're 15 minutes from Midtown.
Probably more accessible, more closer to faster into the city than from other parts of the world.
Exactly. Yeah. So for some parts, I mean, living in the Bronx is like living in Manhattan, you know? And the problem is now those parts of the Bronx are reflecting pretty much the same prices, you know? Similar thing is happening in Brooklyn as well, you know? So it's always, when a lot of people go to a certain place, offer and demand, you know?
Mm-hmm. And what happens to the people that were in those neighborhoods? Perhaps they have been gentrified out of there, the neighborhood has improved, people with a little more income are moving in, buying property. Are they moving people out? Are people being displaced because of this in the Bronx?
No, in reality, there are very good organizations in the Bronx. They are developing certain areas, and they are creating, you know, low-income housing, mid-income housing. That is a very good program. So the South Bronx is very popular right now, mm-hmm. and now around the Yankee Stadium and many places. So people are not suffering as you know, many people assume they would, you know, but it's something that it might happen eventually, you know, because the good parts or the bad parts, let's say, with older buildings, those are renovated, those prices are going to go up. Mm-hmm. So if I cannot afford the rent, I'm going to have to go someplace. Mm-hmm. But that's part of the market game. It's not just something that will happen.
I understand that there's some landlords who do not want to take Section 8 anymore, for example, for the low-income people because they want to refurbish their building, they want to charge more. Is that a problem nowadays in the Bronx?
Well, it is interesting because in some places Section 8 is a better option. I have landlords that only take Section 8.
They like it.
They like it. They like it. Why? Because Section 8 is paying very well. Sometimes what Section 8 pays is over the market price.
And it's more reliable sometimes. The government is more reliable than another tenant.
I mean, as they say, you know, a government check doesn't bounce, you know. So, but, I mean, in reality, nobody can deny Section 8. Only, you know, based on credit or the people are not working, you know. So, and I see that more people are taking Section 8 in programs, in buildings that before they didn't take.
Mm. So, do you see more people nowadays? Is the rental market growing in the Bronx? And if so, where are the people that are leaving the Bronx? Where are they going? Are they moving out of town? Are they moving to other parts of the city? I know that, for example, there used to be a huge Puerto Rican community in the Bronx that now lives in Orlando, Florida.
Right.
A lot of Dominicans from Upper Manhattan moving to the Bronx. Is that what's happening? Some ethnic communities moving out and others coming in?
Well, I wouldn't say an ethnic community. I mean, it's people from all the ethnic communities are going and coming. You know, I think the old days, you know, all the Italians were here, all this and that. It's not that happening anymore, you know, because communication is different, and people can communicate with the relatives. That you don't need to live around the corner from your aunt. I mean, you can be on the phone and you can be on, you know, in many different ways. So I think it's changing the way of doing that. And also, companies are more, they move out of the city. So if you work in Manhattan and all of a sudden your company went to work in Jersey or they went to work in Westchester, you know, and you live in the city, you better to move to Jersey, move to the Bronx, because you're still close to the city, you're still close to the Westchester. So that's a different ways to see it.
Now, I keep referring to Florida because I have a brother who's in real estate in Florida, and he tells me the problems that the real estate market is having over there. And one of the things that I find about Florida, and you tell me if this is happening here, is the tax situation where somebody owns a house that used to be worth $500,000, and the city and the county and the state still want to tax this property for $500,000 when it's now worth $300,000. And people are outraged in Florida over this. Is that happening across the board in New York
It
as
doesn't
well?
happen across the board. The situation is in Florida, you have a lot of new construction. Everything is new. You see like neighborhoods, 100, 200 houses. Everything is new. You don't see a lot of new houses in New York. There is no room to build them.
I see.
So those houses, yes, I wouldn't have a problem because they were built and they spent $500,000 to build them, so they're being taxed as such. But now the house is $300,000 and well, you have a problem. But 80% of the market is old, renovated, so they're still getting the benefit of the old assessment. So it's not really that way.
What about another situation, the condominiums? When you own a condo in a big building, for example, and the building, everybody in the building, all the buyers in this building are supposed to share the maintenance. But let's say that in Florida, again, this is happening a lot, where they build a 300-unit building, and then maybe they sold a 50. And these 50 people now have to cover the maintenance for the 300 units.
Right.
That is outrageous because you can no longer afford that. Your maintenance ends up being more than your mortgage.
Right.
Is that common here as well?
Well, what landlords are doing, what management companies are doing, if you have a co-op or a condo, what they do is that allow to rent. So people can rent, and with the rent, they afford
cover the
maintenance. Otherwise, some people that bought places for cheap, let's say for a cheap mortgage, when they have that situation, their maintenance payments are higher than the mortgage payment.
Absolutely.
Which is ridiculous.
So what advice do you give people? Let's say I come to you and I say, look, I'm looking for a place, I want to buy a place in the Bronx. What advice do you basically, what would you ask me? I'm sure you basically ask me a few questions. How much do you want to spend? Where do you want to live? What else would you want to know?
Well, I wouldn't ask you how much you want to spend. I always like to work the other round. I would ask you how much you have. How much money do you have in your pocket? Because right now you cannot buy anything with less than 20% down.
Because of the bank situation.
Because of the bank situation. So you're going to buy a $500,000 house, you need to at least to have $100,000 in your pocket.
Down payment.
Down payment. Plus closing costs. So you're looking at 100, 120, 125. And based on a $500,000 value, And not a lot of people are walking around with $100,000 in their pocket, So again, you tell me, yes, I do have $100,000. The second question is, how much money do you make? Because the bank is going to give you only 35% of your income to be allocated to pay a mortgage. So to pay a $3,000, $3,000 would be $36,000 a year. 30%, you have to make at least $120,000 a year to cover that mortgage. So I ask all those questions up front because people say, I want to buy a house, but sometimes they don't have the means.
And that's why it's good to go to a real estate broker, because you can give them this information up front, and then they have a very good idea of how much they need to save, what kind of a house they really can afford, right? Because some people think, oh, well, I can buy a $500,000 house, and then they realize that they can't. And in fact, that has been our problem with the economy. A lot of people thought that they could.
Well, and the problem with the economy was that a lot of people were taken advantage of. They were sold, they bought stuff they couldn't afford. Because everybody was saying, well, I pay $500, but a year and a half is going to be $600, $700. So with that cushion that I get in my equity loan, I already am on 20%. It's a complicated thing. But everybody.
Listen, Ricardo, it's been informational, and I appreciate you being here. Well, how do people get a hold of you?
Okay, they can call the office. I have an office here on Grand Concourse, and the number is 347-269-8712. And they can call us at any time.
Repeat that again.
It's 347-269-8712.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. I'm sure you've given us great advice. I'm sure you will be giving our viewers some advice as well. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. And we'll be back very, very soon with another edition of the Bronx Journal. So I hope you keep watching.